From the very beginning, it's always started the same way. For every one of them. Across generations. Across eras. Across history. Over more than a century, they've all waited to get the same word. To get word that they've been chosen. Chosen to sacrifice.
Are you kidding me?
To dedicate.
There's a letter.
To serve.
Dear Mr. Elliott.
Dear Mr. E.
Dear Mr. Holden.
You've been selected for a mission
And authorized to report to the United States Naval Academy.
United States Military
On the
Academy.
9th of July, 1960,
1921
14.
On
before 10
12
a.m.
July 2001.
Annapolis, Maryland.
West Point, New York. So proud of you, son.
Are you sure about this?
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Boy's gonna be an officer in the United States Army.
Only they know what it feels like to be a different kind of kid. The kind of kid willing to risk life for country.
So many people ask, why would he ever commit to going to this type of an institution?
It's scary as a parent.
It's something I think every parent thinks about.
But you're proud of them on the other hand, you know?
They're actually giving up a lot of themselves to support and protect everyone else.
How many people can say that that's what their kid decides to do?
It's in his heart, and it has to be in your heart to defend the country.
You can expect to be challenged academically, physically, morally. Your summers basically don't exist.
You miss out on the kids' holidays.
It's not going to be an easy journey.
You have your academics, you have your military duty, and you have football.
Yes, it is just a game, but a game that epitomizes everything they're here for.
It's the only game that everyone's playing in it. They're willing to die for everyone who's watching it.
Since 1890, the Army-Navy game has embodied the timeless commitment of a group of young men and women to the nation and the ideals that both academies serve. War heroes, presidents, and Heisman winners have all graced this stage. Enemies for one day, who know their calling will unite them when they leave the field, just as their stories do wherever in America they began.
New Jersey, Chicago, Illinois,
Phoenix, Arizona.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Go Army!
It's a library.
Never forget how it all starts for them. Never forget what it takes to decide as a kid that your life is going to be about more than just yourself.
You're a mother, you're always going to worry.
That's her first one. She carried him around for 40 weeks.
They would do whatever it took to protect our country. It's tough.
Once he decided and thought that this was right for him, I supported him 100%.
He knew it was the place for him. So I really just tried to embrace that.
I'm not going to be selfish. It's the unselfish thing for your kids. You let them go. Gotta let them go.
From the very beginning, it's always started the same way. Across generations, across eras. They've gotten word that they've been chosen to sacrifice, to dedicate, to serve. And they've headed off to West Point, in Annapolis. It takes a certain kind of kid to commit to these institutions. Now today in a football game, celebrate the courage of every man and woman to ever make that commitment. This is Army-Navy.
Spectacular. A truly moving piece on a game that moves all of us so incredibly. Welcome to this virtual pep rally for the 121st Army-Navy game. My name is John Sadak. We're so delighted to have you here with us as we celebrate this game, its participants, and veterans like you all around the world. We say thank you truly and deeply for your service. We'll have previews, we'll have interviews, And we'll have a look back at some of the great moments in the history of Army-Navy and what is still to come. Now, this game has unmatched history. Participants in this staple prize of patriotism, selflessness, and service have gone on to greatness, winning Heisman trophies and national championships, along with the grander victories of leadership at all levels in our country, both in the military and in civilian life. And also a true treat as National Football Voice, a 7-year NFL veteran, and my partner on the Westwood One national radio broadcast of the Army-Navy game, Ross Tucker, joins us for the ride. A welcome to you, my friend. Great to see you. Army-Navy is back.
It is, John. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you just talked for a little bit, man, because that's probably the 10th time that I've seen that video about the more things change. I get choked up every time. I don't know if you saw me, but I had to look away. I had to do a bunch of different things. That gets me every time. I love these young men and women. I love this game. My mom was an Army brat. My grandfather, Carl Bachman, was a captain in the U.S. Army his entire career. So this game, any veteran watching right now, you mean more to me than you realize. I've taught my 2 young daughters, anytime we ever see anyone in uniform ever, my girls know to go up to them and say thank you. So thank you to all of you. So glad to be a part of this. Obviously, the pep rally and the game itself. It's going to be awesome.
And I share those ties as well. Both my grandfathers served in World War II. My paternal grandfather helped land tanks in the Pacific. My maternal grandfather spent 18 months as a POW, part of Darby's Rangers, the precursor to today's Army Rangers. And you and I, Ross, also share a unique vantage point. We know these teams on even deeper levels. I cover Navy, you Army on a regular basis on TV for CBS Sports Network. What strikes you about this rivalry and this year's matchup?
Well, it's interesting because this will be my 5th time being a part of it. The first 3 years I was on the sideline. Last year was my first time in the booth. So Army has won every time I've been on the sideline for this game ever. And Navy has won every time I've been in the booth. What strikes me is I'll never forget that first year when Army won and I was on the sideline, John, and I finally know what it's like to be under attack from the infantry because all of the cadets came out of the stands and I was just bobbing and weaving, trying not to get hit by any of them. So I now can tell people I know what it's like to be under attack by an Army, but it's just an awesome rivalry, everything about it. And I guess from a pure football standpoint, I know we'll talk about it a little bit more, just interesting how quickly things can switch for both of these programs. I think it depends a lot of times on injuries. It also depends a lot on the quarterback position. But there were a couple of years there where Army was clearly a better team. Last year, Navy blew Army out. This year, it appears Army has the stronger team, but you never know. Navy's played a tougher schedule. I mean, it should be an awesome game. It's usually a really close contest, which I think we all enjoy.
And also one of the major twists for this year will have the contest being played on Academy grounds. It'll be at West Point. First time that has happened in the storied history of this rivalry since World War II forced it in 1943. It had been at Navy in 42, at Army in 43. And it could be the last time that something like this ever happens.
Yeah, well, 2 thoughts on that. Number one, Mikey Stadium is amazing. I think it's my favorite setting I've ever been at for a football game. I have the pleasure of being there quite often for CBS Sports Network, for Army home games. So that part of it I love. The second part, I guess, John, is I kind of hope this never happens again because it seems like it only is on one of the campuses at the academies under times of strife. The last time it was World War II. Now we've got the pandemic. So let's hope we don't have anything else like this for quite some time.
Yeah. Amen. God bless you on that. And these 2 institutions of the highest value of character and of challenge for the respective students that take that on. And for more on this matchup and what it means, the reverence of it, we welcome in the chairman of CBS Sports, the broadcast home of the Army-Navy game on television, Mr. Sean McManus.
Thanks very much, John. As many of you may know, we've been doing the Army-Navy game consecutively since 1996. It was actually the first year that I got my job, and I actually started in December of 1996. So one of the first games that I watched as president of CBS Sports was the Army-Navy game. We have a lot of great events at CBS Sports, from Super Bowls to Final Fours to Masters. But I have to say that no event that we cover captures what is great about America and great about sports than the Army-Navy game. It represents the absolute best. It's players who are playing only for the love of the game. By and large, almost totally, they're not going to be professional football players. They're going to go into the service when they graduate, and they're doing this for the love of the game. And they try to, beat each other up during the 60 minutes of football. But when it's over, they're comrades in arms, literally. And when you see those shots of the midshipmen in the Army Corps, it's remarkable. The atmosphere at that game. We did an opening, and one of the fathers of one of the players said, "It's the only game where the people playing will die for the people watching," which I thought just summed up so incredibly well that these are men and boys, really, who are going to put their lives on the line to defend our country. So what could be possibly better than that? And the spirit at the end of the game with the alma maters that they sing, and the way they salute each other, the way the cadets and the midshipmen go over the barricades onto the field. I mean, it's unbridled emotion, and it's unbridled patriotism, and it's unbridled amateur college athletics, amateur college football. And there's nothing like it in America. And every year I watch it, I say to myself, of all the events that are on CBS Sports, this one has a very special place in my heart. I do remember as a kid watching the Army-Navy game on television, and my dad was in the Navy. He was a captain of a minesweeper in World War II. And I would always root so hard for Navy because I felt like I was rooting for my dad. But a lot of the times I watched the game, sometimes by myself because my dad was away on most weekends. And I remember watching those games and just rooting my little heart out for Navy to beat Army. And when they didn't, I was really, really sad. Most recently, my favorite memories, 2016, which happened to be Vern Lundquist's last game calling the Army-Navy game. And Army, suffering through a 14-game losing streak, finally came back and won. It was a great game. It was, I think, 21-17. Ahmad Bradshaw was the quarterback for Army, and it was just terrific. And it was an upset that nobody saw coming. And the fact that Vern Lundquist got to go out on top with an incredible game like that made it even more special. And then in 2017, the snow game, where literally there was what seemed like a couple of feet of snow on the playing surface. And they went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Navy missed a field goal with no time on the clock to lose the game to Army. So Army won for the second time in a row. I believe the score was 14-13. But those two memories were absolutely remarkable. But every year is remarkable. But when you get a close game and you get a team that has lost 14 straight games come back and win, that's why we got into the business of sports television when we were younger, was to be able to present events like this that are so good for our sports division, are so good for our corporation, and quite frankly, are so good for our viewers, and bottom line, so good for our country also. The fact that a large part of America gets to come together, for the Army-Navy game. It's a tradition that, and I get emails and I get letters and I get texts from people who say, once again, I know why I watch the Army-Navy game every year. My dad was a captain of a minesweeper in World War II. He told a lot of stories to our family about his years in the Navy. It was a very, very important part of his life. It really taught him to appreciate his country. It really made him into an even bigger patriot than he was before he went into the Navy. And I think it instilled in him a sense of duty and a sense of honor, which I think he passed down to me in some obvious ways and in some very subliminal ways. But he looked back very fondly, and I think he was proud of the fact that he was part of the force that defended our country. So it was an important part of his life, and he tried to make it a very important part of my life also. I will finish just by thanking all the men and women who serve in our armed forces and the sacrifices they make and the commitment they have to our country. It's unrivaled, and it's something that we should all think about every day of our lives. We should all be grateful, and the service you are supplying is really God's work. And I can't thank you enough for the service to your country and your unselfishness. And I know America feels the exact same way. You're the best that America has to offer, and you make us all proud every single day.
And Mr. McManus, we thank you, and certainly for the entire Viacom CBS family. There is so much weight and meaning to all of you that serve and to this game, and the chance to chronicle it and record the legends that are created. Now, he also referenced many of the outstanding traditions that make Army-Navy just plain different. And some of those differences can be seen in videos in advance of the game. Both on the Army and the Navy side, we'll annually see different spirit messages shift out. And we have one from the Army side to get us going from Army Central Command in Kuwait.
Go Army! Go Army! Go Army!
Go Army, beat Navy.
Go Army, beat Navy. Go Army, beat Navy!
Go Army, beat Navy.
Go Army, beat Navy. Beat Navy! Beat Navy! Beat Navy!
And we appreciate that. Army, of course, on the football field this year, a successful campaign, a 7-2 record. Scheduling as an independent during a pandemic is not easy, and they have had a spectacular season. The year highlighted perhaps by the defense, scoring 3 touchdowns this year, and the most blocked kicks in college football with 7. Ross, you've seen Army almost every home game this year. We're going to take a look at some of the biggest moments for Army season so far.
Yeah.
Intercepted here. Radigan's got it. Sean Radigan back for the touchdown. Buchanan, look at him again. Can he get into the end zone? Yes! Here's a toss. Blackman. Touchdown!
Did you see his teammates? That is what this is all about. That gives me chills.
And Army gets in there and blocks it. Their 6th block kick of the year. What a play!
And so 7 victories on the campaign. Ross, what are the standout moments to you? What has kind of defined this Army season?
Well, once again, John, you guys are giving me chills. Every video we play so far kind of gives me chills. You know, it's interesting because I thought coming into the year that they had really lost a lot of talent, specifically on the defensive side of the ball with stalwarts like Cole Christensen, Elijah Riley, who are both actually getting paychecks right now from NFL teams. But they have been better up front along the offensive line. They have been so good on defense. I mean, you think about like the Cincinnati Bearcats, that's a top 10 team. I'd argue they should be number 6 in the country probably right now. Their lowest yardage totals, lowest points, all of that stuff came when they played against Army. One of 2 losses that Army has all year. They found a way to win games that maybe other years they would not have. The UTSA game where they had 2 first-time quarterbacks out there. Georgia Southern game, they're down by 2 touchdowns. They have Tyre Tyler making his first start, the 4th different starting quarterback they've had this year, and they still found a way to win. They've been extremely resilient and good in the close contests.
So with that in mind, how do you think they match up for this year's game against Navy? Where does their skill set kind of blend against another option team?
Well, so the other thing that really I think helps them in that regard is they played the Citadel earlier. So they've played an option team. Now the Citadel runs a little bit differently than Navy does. They also played Georgia Southern, who has some of the similar concepts as well. So I think Army has been aided by that. Now the flip side is they haven't played the Air Force Academy yet. Navy did get to play them earlier in the year. I don't anticipate watching. We'll talk more about Navy later, but I don't anticipate a lot of points in this one. Look, I want everybody to tune in. Well, 3 o'clock CBS on Saturday, but I expect a low-scoring, hard-fought, any fumble, any touchdown could be the difference in the game type of contest.
And you also had a chance to catch up with the Army head coach, Jeff Monken, and break it down a little bit.
It was awesome. Got a chance to talk to Jeff Monken. You think about the stats, they're going to yet another bowl game this year, another successful campaign. He ended the streak. He has done a terrific job at West Point. I love getting the chance to check in with Coach Monken. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're all fired up for Army Navy on Saturday. I do have to ask you, though, it's been a couple weeks. Could tell after the game that Georgia Southern win really meant a lot to you and to the seniors coming into these last 2 games.
It meant a lot to our players, and that's why it meant a lot to me. Certainly, I've got some ties to Georgia Southern, but just the way that we won that game, to go down 14-0, and they had 1 total yard of offense, and to be up 2 touchdowns, and they come back from that and find a way to win, and to find a way to win even after I mismanaged the clock there on the last series. Our guys just battled. They just believed they were going to win, and they found a way. I'm so proud of them and so excited to do that on a day we were honoring our seniors for Senior Day.
All right, let's talk Army Navy. I know from previous years you've told me that there is no bigger football game, and I agree with you. Why do you say that there is no bigger football game, period, in the world?
The history and tradition of this game is incredible. That alone, the great teams, the great players and coaches that have been a part of this game, the fact that the nation really focuses on these 2 institutions on this one day because of the football game, and what these 2 institutions mean to our country and to our military. To watch 2 teams battle and 22 guys out there on every play, battling out for their respective branches of service, and to know that all 22 of those young men have made a pledge of commitment to their country and would pay the ultimate price for everybody watching the game. There's no other game like that. And so I think it just truly makes it special and one of a kind, and the best rivalry in sports.
Every time anybody says that or you say that, it gives me chills because it's 1,000% true. And this year it will be especially different and especially special with it being at West Point for the first time since 1943. What is that going to be like, and how fired up for the guys to be able to play this one at home?
We are really excited to be hosting this game. There's something very nostalgic about it, knowing that the last time it was played here was during World War II, and that the very first Army-Navy game was played here on the plane when Dennis Mikey accepted the challenge from the midshipmen. So I told our players, it may never be played here again. This may be the last and final time that it's played here. So just the tremendous sense of pride that we feel playing here at our stadium, it will be very special for us.
Just overall heading into this game, obviously you guys have had a very successful season. How are you feeling about your team in general and heading into this game in particular?
I love our team, and I love the leadership from within the ranks of this team. Our senior class, our captains, have just done an unbelievable job of maintaining a competitive spirit and a team first attitude all year. And it's just been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun playing, and I've had just as much fun as I've ever had coaching this year with these guys. The way they've responded, coming off of last year's season and even disappointments this year, the way they've battled, really, really feel good about our team. And we're not healthy. We're like a lot of other teams at this point in the season with injuries and COVID, and there's a lot of factors that are unanticipated in a season like this in a crazy year. But our guys have really handled it well. Been very proud of them. Our staff's done a great job, and we're just looking forward to this big game. There's just no game like it, and the emotion and the feeling when you're out there as a competitor is just indescribable. So we're all looking forward to Saturday.
So, Coach, this interview and this show is for veterans all across the globe. So I want to give you an opportunity to send them a message directly from the head coach of Army heading into this game.
I don't even know where to start in thanking all of our men and women who serve this great nation, and just the pride that we all have in knowing that there are our brothers and sisters who are fellow citizens that have taken the pledge to serve and defend and protect all of us so that we can enjoy days like Saturday, the Army-Navy game, and we can rest our head on the pillow each night knowing that we're protected and we're safe because we've got brave men and women who are willing to do the job that the rest of us aren't. So just thank you. Thank you from our team, our institution, our community, the United States of America for your service to our country. And we'll do our very best today to represent all of you, particularly those that are in the Army and the colors that we wear. We play for the Army and really feel like we're an extension of the over 1 million men and women who serve on active duty in the United States Army. So we do that with a great sense of pride. And I wish you all well. Come home safe and beat Navy.
Well said, Coach. Thank you so much.
And we thank Jeff Munkin, the veteran steward of the Army program, and certainly also a man with a unique view of this game. Spent time as an assistant at the Naval Academy, now the head coach at West Point leading Army. And speaking of the Navy, we have heard Army spirit message. Time now to shift to the sea and the crew of the Navy support facility, Diego Garcia, in the Indian Ocean.
From the shores of Diego Garcia, deep in the Indian Ocean, go Navy, beat Army!
We appreciate that. A spectacular view, the gorgeous scene out there, and thank you to all the men and women in service. For Navy, its football season has seen its challenges. The mid start of the year 3-0 in conference play, but have lost 4 straight. They have seen 3 different starting quarterbacks, but they believe they now have their man in the freshman, Xavier Arline. Ross, what has stood out to you with this Navy team?
Well, it's interesting, John, because it feels like it's a little bit been a roller coaster of a season. You know, they started out that game against BYU. I remember watching that. That got ugly. And then even the game against Air Force, I was surprised that that was such a one-sided affair. And then they battled back. They battled back in that Tulane game with the epic comeback, the big win over Temple. And it felt like they were kind of getting things going a little bit there with the running game, with the fullbacks, Smith and Carruthers. But then for whatever reason, they just have not been able to sustain offense running the football. They've played a number of different quarterbacks. Most of these games, they're playing 2 quarterbacks. I will say I was impressed by Arline against Tulsa. He definitely has some legit speed, legit quickness. The offensive line is not as good as it was a year ago. They had some issues defensively earlier in the year, but more recently, their defense looks awesome. I mean, what they did against Memphis, what they did against Tulsa, which is why, as I was saying earlier, I will expect this to be I feel like this is going to be like a 17-14 type of game, 14-13. I think that's what we're in store for.
Well, let's take a look at some of the big moments of this year for Navy.
And here is Goslin to throw. This one is complete with nothing but green ahead. Touchdown, Navy. How about that?
Ball down, kick up. The kick is good, and Navy wins it.
Nelson Smith, he says touchdown. Russo to tie the game. To Davis, knocked away, incomplete. And Kenny Amatololo is now 100 wins all at Navy. Morris taking another shot, another wide open target. Touchdown, Navy.
I'm always amazed at these guys. Just when everybody counts them out, they just keep fighting. So proud of our players.
And you heard word there about the Navy head coach, Ken Niumatalolo. He has seen his share of Army-Navy matchups. This marks his 23rd year at the Naval Academy, his 13th as the head coach. And we caught up with the winningest head man in program history for his thoughts. Coach, thank you very much for joining us. The Army-Navy game. What does it mean to you?
The Army-Navy game means everything to me. You know, it's the biggest game of the year for us. It's what we look forward to every year. It's what our football program is about. It's what our school is about. And this is our Super Bowl.
No coach in the storied history of this rivalry has more wins than your 9, most recently just last season. But do you have a standout memory about this game, about this series that resonates?
I would go to last year. You know what I mean? Just from it's the most recent one. And, you know, most of our games are hard-fought wins, or hard-fought games, John. And to be able to beat them last year in a convincing fashion last year with that senior class was pretty special.
2020, with all the challenges of this year, one of the major twists has Army-Navy being played at West Point. This hasn't happened since World War II in 1943. Your thoughts, your takeaways, your feelings on this major twist to a storied rivalry that has seen it all?
Well, when I first heard it from Mr. Gladchick, I'm like, what? we're going there? I mean, and then when the more I heard about it, it'd be just, you know, their Corps cadets and our brigade of midshipmen, you know, have never been there before. And as it settled in, I think all of our guys are like, it's going to be pretty sweet, you know, to go to West Point. We're looking forward to going up there and beating them.
What do you expect in this year's matchup as you look at your Navy team, this Army team, and the preparation wrinkles that go into this year's collision?
This will be my 23rd one, John. It's going to be the same. It's going to be a dogfight. Both sides are going to bring everything they got, and it's going to be a battle, and like they are every single year.
So the Naval Academy, celebrating its 175th anniversary, opened its doors in October of 1845. That celebration culminates with Army-Navy, and you're going to have a part of the Academy there with you. One of the greatest elements of this fantastic game is seeing the uniforms that each school wears. And for you, they'll be highlighted by that blue and white marble pattern. It'll be on the helmets. It'll be on the shoulders, shades of the stone that's prominently accented throughout the grounds, part of the crypt of John Paul Jones. What went into this year's uniform, and what was your reaction when you saw it?
I think the uniforms are sweet. They're awesome looking. They've done a great job every year in capturing what our school stands for and capturing a message that's a part of us. So, you know, when we hear the messages behind why they did certain things, they're always cool stories, but they're pretty sweet uniforms, and we're looking forward to wearing them.
Can you share with us the year-round impact of this game? Obviously, for most games, you're preparing leading into the week thereof, but Army-Navy has a little bit of a 365 element to it.
Well, when you come here, that's the first thing you're told as a freshman. You're not allowed to say many things at a plebe, but you are allowed to say, "Go Navy, beat Army." I mean, and you won't get in trouble. So you're indoctrinated and schooled early on. Who you're programmed to beat when you come to school here. From the first day you get here to when you leave, and even after that. And so that's always a part of the school. Everybody's different, you know what I mean? About, they try to, put, a lot of beat Navy stuff around their locker room and this and that, but I try not to put their name on too much of our stuff in our buildings. So, we want to beat these guys, and we have a great amount of respect for them, but this is everything for us. This is everything for us in our program to beat those guys.
What makes Army Navy different than the other rivalries? I say it regularly, this is the greatest rivalry in sport, but to you, what allows for that?
I've always said this, John. I think the Army Navy rivalry is different than other great rivalries because it's not regional. Whatever it is, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, or Texas, Oklahoma, USC, UCLA, all great rivalries. Oregon State. There's so many of those, and Ohio State, Michigan, but they're all regional. The Army-Navy game, it touches pretty much everybody in the country, where everybody knows somebody that either is serving or who has served in the Navy or Marine Corps. So I think that's what separates this rivalry, that it truly is America's game because it touches all of America.
And lastly, on that note, anything you'd like to say to the many veterans, the men and women who have served that are in our audience today?
Yes, I would just like to thank all of the men and women that have served, who are serving, our great country. So grateful for all of you that, allow us to live the lives that we live, to have the freedoms that we have in the greatest country in the world. So thank you so much for your service.
And we thank you and your team for providing us with this fantastic event on an annual basis. Best of luck to you.
Thank you, John.
And we thank the veteran Navy head coach, almost a quarter century of Army-Navy games for Ken Niumatalolo. But when we think of the stars of Army and Navy in recent years, Army's story would be incomplete without Trent Steelman, one of the great names in college football, period. He made all-time history as a freshman quarterback at Army starting. He rewrote the program record books and made a lasting impression in his Army uniform as we look at some of his big moments. Trent Steelman entered the top 5 in program history in rushing yards, in total yards, in touchdowns. Went on after his time on the playing field to serve a maintenance platoon leader, time in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens. He's been an offensive coordinator in college football. These days, the quarterback coach at Eastern Kentucky, and he joins us now as we welcome in the former QB1 for Army in Trent Steelman. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We appreciate you being here. Your senior year, 2012, you won the Black Lion Award, the most prestigious honor for an Army football player. When you reflect back to that year, to your career with Army football, what stands out?
Just the memories, the relationships that were built over my 4 years at West Point. I mean, those bonds, those memories, they run deep. And I'm able to sit in this chair and do what I love and be able to give back to players that are now sitting in the seats because of what West Point gave me and what the relationships I built over my time at West Point gave me. I mean, those guys have gone on to make and trying to make lifelong careers in the military. And, because of their sacrifices and what we were able to accomplish as football players at West Point and cadets and officers in the military, those are memories that will last forever. And those are really the memories, the experiences that are and why that I am the leader that I'm able to be today, and why I'm able to coach football and be a husband and be a father to my 2 boys.
Trent, hey, what's up, man? It's Ross Tucker. Good to talk with you. We met at the AFCA convention a couple years ago. I want to first know how the heck you were able to play 8 years at Army. I felt like every time I watched the Army-Navy game for about 8 years, you were the quarterback for Army. And actually, that's a good question to ask you because it appears Navy will have a freshman starting quarterback, Xavier Arline, making his 3rd start ever. And I would guess that Army is going to have a sophomore starting quarterback, Tyler Tyler, making his 2nd start ever. So these 2 young men are coming into this game with a total, this will be their 5th starts combined. What was that like your freshman year, starting in this game and looking at all the upperclassmen who this was maybe their last game ever and they were looking to you to try to go out on top? What's that like for a young starting quarterback in this game? Because I think we'll have 2 of them.
You know, to be honest, it was almost a complete blur. You know, you get so wrapped up in the game in itself that sometimes you forget that it's football at the end of the day. You know, for a young quarterback heading into that game, I think that's the one thing I missed on as a freshman starting in this football game is that at the end of the day, it's football, and you can't get too wrapped up in the environment, the hype that goes along with playing in the Army-Navy game, and you just got to go out there and be yourself and play the game you love. But at the same time, you got to realize what's at stake too, and you got to realize that a lot of these guys that you're playing with and playing against, it'll be the last time that they'll strap on the shoulder pad, so you're going to get their best shot. But you can't stray too far from what you do and who your identity is and what you've been put on the field to do, and that's to lead and execute and play ball and just live within yourself and not try to do too much, not try to be the hero of the game, but just go out there and play every play like it's a life in itself, and eventually the excitement, the hype, the adrenaline, it'll wear off, and you got to go play your game.
Your final Army-Navy game, one of the pieces of this rivalry that makes it connect with so many people is how raw and how real it is, and the depth of care that you guys have in playing in this game. It created images that define this event. You know, you bared your soul that Saturday to the country. What was that experience like for you? And have you been able to go back and watch that game at any point?
You know, I have, and to be honest, it always comes up, especially this time of year. But the one thing I will say is that I'll never apologize for my reactions after that game, because like you said, they were true, they were raw, and it was really just my love for the game and my love for the teammates and my school. And, you know, just to have something so close slip away, something that you have fought for 4 years and something that means the world of the school and to the program, to have it at the grasp and just to let it slip away. I mean, it hurt. I mean, there was no way around it, but you know, that was the real me, and that was my real emotions, and that was my true love for the game in itself. And so, you know, when you fight for something for so long and for so hard, and you dedicate the amount of hours and time commitment it takes to put yourself in a position to go succeed and win a football game, those type of moments are going to define you as a player and you as a program. But what the one thing I will say is the takeaways I got from that experience really changed my outlook on life and changed my perspective for the game in itself and who I am as a person and what I want to accomplish in life. But, you know, the outreach, not only from Army fans and alumni, but Navy in itself, that to me was the true meaning of the game. There was countless of emails, phone calls, messages that I received from Navy fans, alumni, former players, coaches that were there with me, and they sympathized in that moment. And to me, that's what this game is about. You know, when you go out there and you battle for 4 hours on a Saturday you are enemies. You're trying to win that game at all costs, but at the end of the day, when that game ends, you're all one and you're all set to go fight for the same purpose.
We thank you so much for your time and for the memories that you made in this game. You're a giant part of Army-Navy history, and we appreciate your humanity and your realness with us.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate you guys having me.
That is Trent Steelman, former QB for Army, one of the all-time greats. Well, Bravo team, the most elite unit of Navy SEALs, planning and taking on dangerous missions worldwide. The subject of the hit CBS TV series SEAL Team, which kicked off its 4th season earlier this month. The cast has its own message in advance of this year's Army-Navy game.
Go Army, beat Navy! Yeah! Go Navy, beat Army! Yeah! At the end of the day, we're all in this together. Thank you for your service. Go Navy!
And we thank you very much to the cast of SEAL Team, which you can watch Wednesdays on CBS and CBS All Access. And it is that sense of the greater team that is formed as soon as this game concludes and service soon thereafter begins for the men on the field and the men and women of the Corps of Cadets and the Brigade of Midshipmen that are in the stands as well. And we shift now to a former Navy great, the legendary Phil McConkey, a Navy record-setting wide receiver and return man, then a Navy pilot, on to the NFL, Super Bowl 21 glory, and now the president of Academy Securities, a disabled veteran business enterprise. He made plays a little bit everywhere during his time in the Navy blue and gold, and also starred for the Big Blue Wrecking Crew with one of the most opportunistic touchdown grabs on the tip of Oro Bowl in the end zone that still lives in Super Bowl glory. And we welcome in Phil McConkey. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Hi, John. Hey, Ross. Hey, can I get some of that black hair back, maybe, that you showed in the pictures? Can CBS pull that off for me or what?
I think, well, if we could affect that, then perhaps I could get some hair, period, here.
There you go. 1 for 1.
So when you think of Army-Navy, from your time playing and the years you've been able to watch since, what jumps out to you?
You want to know the truth? It's the one we lost, right? Everything I've done in my life on the football field, that one play in that one game, to this day, I'm 63 years old, and it doesn't leave me. I scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I think more about the one that got away against Army than I do all the 3 wins and all the times I did it in the NFL. And I think that's the trait of a competitor, right? Competitors hate to lose a hell of a lot more than they like to win. Winning is just a relief that you didn't lose. So I think I still take that with me. It still drives me today.
Phil, I'm guessing you get asked this all the time, but I still need to ask you, compare the Army-Navy game to the Super Bowl. I'm sure you have like a stock answer at this point, but I've never heard it, so give it to me.
Listen, everything is relative in life, right? At that time, I mean, 18, 19, 20, it was the Super Bowl. It really was. The feelings, the emotions are as intense in the Army-Navy game. Those kids, those young heroes that will be on the field Saturday at West Point, they have the same emotions as, I don't know, what Super Bowl is this, 50 something? I don't know who the teams are going to be, but what they feel inside is the same thing those kids, those heroes will be feeling Saturday at West Point. It's exactly the same.
And with that in mind, how did you manage it? If you could give words to this year's players, how do you recommend they kind of control themselves and play within themselves when you just want to run into orbit when you go out on that field?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, John. And, as Ross knows, anytime you take the field, your nerves are at a very high level. And, you do have to control nerves in that situation. But I think these are young men that are being trained to be leaders of soldiers, and they're the best we have to offer. They've been undergoing incredible, intense leadership training. They've got the best coaches. They've got the best military officers. So, I'm confident that they'll all succeed and be able to focus on one goal. And again, Ross knows this really well. when you play football, whether it's in the NFL or the Army Navy game, you're part of something bigger than yourself. So it's a lot easier to put forth effort and to focus and to concentrate and to control your nerves if it's for the guy on either side of you rather than just for yourself. You get more out of yourself when you're doing it for someone else. And I think football, that's what football is all about. But when you talk about Army Navy football, it's even more than that because of who these young men are, what they're doing, and what they're preparing to do.
Phil, do you make it a point to get a chance to watch the Army Navy game every year? Are you able to sit back and enjoy it, or do you get some butterflies? I guess I'm just curious what your setup is every year for this game.
You know, again, when you talk about controlling nerves and emotions, you know, my nerves and emotions now are probably worse than I played, you know, because it's for the kids, it's for the institution that I love so much. So I'm more nervous now, but I have no outlet for it. I can't run out on the field and do a sprint, you know, and exercise it out of me. But yeah, Ross, it's, you know, I think it's like that for any alumnus of West Point or Annapolis, you know, for this game. You feel that and you have those nerves and those butterflies, and, you know, and you have a great game. And, you know, like Trent said at the end of it, man, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all fighting for the same cause. And it's just those three and a half hours on Saturday once a year that, you know, we're adversaries. But yeah, I'll get butterflies come Saturday. That's for sure.
Our audience today, Phil, largely veterans. Since your time serving, you've gone on to become the president of Academy Securities, a disabled veteran business enterprise. What is it? What do you do?
So we're a disabled military veteran investment bank broker dealer. We hire and train, mentor military veterans for careers in financial services. While we're doing that, we're helping our clients with their financial needs, our institutional clients like Fortune 500 companies, municipalities, pension funds, hedge funds, mutual funds. So it's kind of a you know, a two-edged sword for us. You know, we've got a social mission that I talked about to give these incredible heroes an opportunity that they might not get otherwise. And we add resources to our clients and provide a value add proposition. And, you know, the difference when you talk about my time in the service, 1979 to 1984, the only war that was going on then was a Cold War. You know, these kids that we bring in and that we hire, these kids that are playing in this game Saturday, in the recent conflicts that we've been in, they were in real wars. Nobody was shooting at me. I mean, I'd like to think I'd be as brave as these young men and women, but I'm not so sure. These kids, they're the best we have to offer. I can't be more effusive in my praise for who they are and what they're doing. I'm in awe of them, actually. I'm in awe of who they are. I'm in awe of about what they're planning to do, what they're going to do in the future. You know, as an old man sitting here, you know, I can rest assured that our future is in good hands. Because if you haven't, and I know you guys have been around midshipmen and cadets, but just to your listeners, people watching this, if you haven't ever met a midshipman or a cadet, you really should, because these are the people that are protecting us in the future. These are the best we have to offer. I'm in awe of who they are. I'm in awe of their service. And oh, by the way, my daughter's applying to the Naval Academy. She's a senior in high school. So never would I have ever dreamt that my daughter would be going potentially to the Naval Academy, but it could happen. We'll see.
That is amazing, Phil. And the thing that impresses me so much about these guys in particular, you know, all the guys for these teams now, they've got other opportunities to go to college for free. You know, I mean, they're getting other scholarship offers, Ivy League, whatever it is, they've got other offers. They are choosing to sign up for the commitment after their 4 years at the academy. I'm hoping you can take us back to your decision. Where else were you thinking about going? And you can take us inside the mindset of someone that decides, you know what, I'm gonna take the path less traveled, and I'm gonna take the path that maybe a lot of my buddies from high school just wouldn't have the appetite for.
So you're gonna make me retrace ancient history here, Ross, for the audience, but that's okay. So growing up in Buffalo, you know, my dad worked 3 jobs just to put me through a private school. I was all New York State on offense and defense. I never came off the field, but I was 145 pounds. And back then they still had the 30-95 rule, which meant that colleges had a maximum amount of scholarships that they can give out. I talked to all the big schools, every single one of them, but they were hesitant to offer me a scholarship and waste a slot on a 145-pound guy. So it came down for me because I couldn't ask my dad to work another minute. We couldn't afford college. So it came down to West Point, Annapolis, and a few Ivy League schools. And even the Ivy League schools, there was a grant and aid and I couldn't afford the rest of it. So it's West Point or Annapolis. So, you know, growing up in Buffalo, I went to visit West Point. I think it was in March. And it was cold and dark and gray, but I'm from Buffalo. I was used to that. So figuring I was going to go to West Point, but my dad said, you made a commitment to go visit Annapolis. I says, I begrudgingly went to Annapolis thinking I was going to go to West Point. Well, a couple weeks later, I got to Annapolis. The sun was shining, their white uniforms, and I'm like by the water, and I'm going, all right. So that was my decision as an 18-year-old. So that's how I ended up in Annapolis.
Bill, we thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Ross. Go Navy.
That is Navy and Super Bowl legend Phil McConkey joining us in advance of the 121st Army-Navy game. And this game does represent a union of Army and Navy by the time it concludes. So they'll go on to form the greatest team in the world when their service begins and their football playing days end. And with that in mind, a combination spirit message from Army and Navy.
Hey everybody, just a couple days before the big game at West Point between Army and Navy, 121st iteration of the game. Navy broke Army's win streak of 3 in a row last year, so it's time to get back on winning ways. As the CEO of Wounded Warrior Project, Lieutenant General retired Mike Lennington and 71st Commandant of Cadets at West Point, simple message for this week. Go Army, beat Navy.
And we appreciate that. The Wounded Warrior Project, the greatest casualty is being forgotten. For more, woundedwarriorproject.org. Now we welcome in Army veteran and Army Ranger, now the Chief Veteran Officer of Viacom CBS, Rich Jones. Rich? And a look at Rich Jones as we welcome in Colonel Greg Gadsden to the program.
Hi, how you doing? Good afternoon.
Yourself?
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here with us today. Former West Point football player and a man of service as well. What are your memories of Army and Navy?
It was the first time I stepped on the field for the Army-Navy game, my freshman year, or plebe year. I immediately felt the electricity of a big game. I was listening to Phil McConkey kind of talk about comparing it to the Super Bowl, and I got the chance to sit on the sidelines of a Super Bowl with the Giants, and as you know, and it was very much the same. It's just there's something special about the game. There's a feeling that just that touches you, and it really is. It's special.
And also live broadcasts are special as well. We apologize the small hiccup, but we now welcome in Rich Jones. Rich, how are you?
John, thank you so much. I apologize. You'd expect this from an 11 Bravo. Listen, as I said, my son was bragging about me about his SAT score. And I said, I had a good enough ASVAB score to be an 11 Bravo. And so I guess that this shows that. John, thank you so much. How fortunate we are to be here celebrating two things this afternoon that are absolutely near and dear to our hearts. The Army-Navy game and our nation's brave military and veteran community. It does not get any better than this. To our active duty military personnel, our beloved cadets and midshipmen, our veteran guests, thank you so much for your sacrifice, your steadfast leadership, your unwavering commitment, and your distinguished service to our great country, and for all that you've done for our nation. You motivate and inspire us, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you with us this afternoon. Through your years of dedication and sacrifice, you remind us all that the highest expression of citizenship is service in our military and service to our military veterans. Thank you. The Army-Navy game, like many of our military-themed programming that you'll find on Viacom CBS and specifically CBS Sports, is the manifestation of the great passion and commitment that this company has always had for our nation's veterans. Our founders, Sumner Redstone and William Pally, both highly decorated World War II veterans, would be very proud of our efforts. They would applaud us for gathering here today to celebrate this storied rivalry, and in so doing, remembering the service and sacrifice of our brave men and women who have worn our uniform over the years and their families. Today, we are very proud of the nearly 600 veterans that are currently employed at Viacom CBS. We never forget our obligation to the more than 22 million living veterans who are in this country, especially the nearly 2.6 million who nobly answered the call of service after the events of September 11, 2001. The Viacom CBS Veterans Network is proud to continue that great legacy of those who came before us, and in ways big and small, to do what this company has always done by making an unwavering commitment to assist our nation's veterans and their family. Our common refrain is, what can we do to help? You know that you can count on us to deliver the best content on television, but you can always count on us at the Viacom CBS Veterans Network to stand shoulder to shoulder with you to make sure that we honor our nation's military and its veterans and their family, and to honor President Lincoln's call to action from his second inaugural address, to care for them that shall have borne the battle. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to announce that we have with us today Colonel Greg Gadsden, the incomparable Greg Gadsden. Colonel Gadsden is a distinguished and highly decorated combat commander, West Point graduate, former Black Knight football player, number 98, actor, motivational speaker, retired colonel, United States Army, inspirational and impactful wounded warrior and advocate. And let me say this, his achievements and impact in uniform are only exceeded by what he has done since he left active duty. And I don't say retirement because that's not in his vocabulary. There is no one who exemplifies the drive-on spirit, that drive-on mentality that we speak about in the Rangers, and no brighter light in the dark universe, and no one more devoted to our nation's military and veteran community than Colonel Gadsden. And we are so appreciative that he was able to join us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome Colonel Greg Gadsden, my dear friend. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate the warm and very kind introduction. Great to be here today.
Sir, you sit in a very unique position, given your experience. Your life is a testament to what service and sacrifice are all about. And whether it was when you were a cadet, and especially given the fact that your experience on the combat, on the field of combat, but also on the gridiron, right? So, given that we're here to celebrate the Army-Navy game, tell me, what is so special about this rivalry? What makes it different than Auburn, Alabama, or Ohio State, Michigan? What makes it special?
Well, Rich, thank you. And again, what a great question. To me, the thing that separates this rivalry is really you think about the Auburn and Alabama and Ohio State, Michigan, they are rivals 365 days a year. There's I guess a genuine level of competition and that's probably putting it kindly, that exists. But the Army-Navy game, in all honesty and all truth, we're always rooting for each other. We're rooting for each other during the season. And for 3 hours or during any competitions between end of the sports, we're going at it. We're going at it knowing, putting it all on the line. But the difference is if we're fortunate to be able to play for 4 years, as I was able to play, is that these men and women that you competed against are going to be your lifelong teammates, in uniform, and that is certainly bared out in my personal experience, and so that is I think that's the depth of our competition, but really our brotherhood.
And sir, given today when it's you've got one side versus the other. This is we're a highly competitive society, and sometimes we forget that, right? That
Right.
we're all in this together, right? We are here to solve big problems, and again, when you reflect on your service, right, solving the big problems,
Yeah, absolutely. We're not red, we're not green, we're not Democrat or Republican. We are Americans, and we're in a uniform. And you know what? That's we're there to get a job done, and that's what I love. I mean, that is you never once thought about whether you agreed with you might the food you like, or the who you root for in different games, but that makes no difference when you're out there on the battlefield.
And sir, I think one of the sobering aspects of life is when, to get to that level, I think sometimes they always say, there has to be something that happens to really focus the mind, right? I think that's
Right.
certainly something that happens in combat. But I think, from your experience, and you and I have had discussions, as having been retired from the military, I know from my own experience what that means. But from your experience, as having gone from being a combat commander, and then the very next moment life changed so drastically for you, and then what lessons that you can give to us, because it really brings us above. When we talk about supra, above the thing where you can see with great clarity what the mission is, and all of those things that the inspiration. And that is, I think, one of the most powerful things, that you're able to convey. If you could just share with us, that experience and how that really is informed, every day for the rest of your life.
Right. To me, Rich, is simple in mind or simple in principle. It's about how you live your life, and the time at our academy, the time being an athlete, the time of building the habits of giving your best and leaving it all out there, every day, every single day, building on those habits, and they become your character. And I don't think I did anything but what was natural for me. It was about my character. I can tell you, after losing my legs, you felt like quitting. You wanted to quit, but that wasn't who I was. That wasn't my character. And so I couldn't even do that right. And so I just said, all right, what do I got to lose? I'm biting back into this. I'm gonna run into the wind. And just like we were trained, just like you were trained in the Ranger Regiment, you just get up and there's no quit in you. And what a way to find out that I didn't have that quit in me. I mean, I didn't, there's nothing I ever imagined, but at the end of the day, I had to be myself. I had to be who I was. And I thank God that my path and my experiences challenged me for this moment in my life where, I had to stand tall, and I was fortunate to be able to do so.
Well, sir, I will tell you, you are a great inspiration through your example to us. And to that point, when we have these wonderful young men and women who are at the academies, and as they're going through their formative stages before they, I think this past week there was, the assignments were given as to branches and all various stages of that formative experience. What words of encouragement, advice would you give to this generation of cadets and midshipmen as you reflect upon your over 20 years of active duty, and then the component of service after your service, and
right.
and you touch on it, the formation of character, and so maybe for those cadets and midshipmen right now who are watching this, or will watch this, what do you say?
Well, look, I think that I would say as an older generation or one or two ahead of you, is that we've got a lot of hopes in you. We hope that you can be better than us, that you can meet the challenges, the leadership challenges that our world and our nation is going to have, that we're going to put on your generation's shoulders. I almost kind of saying, think of this as just the very beginning, that you're a work in progress, and you have to continue to build on those habits so that they become truly become your character, that non-negotiable character that needs to be hardened so that you can meet the challenges that our nation and our world's going to face.
Sir, thank you. John, excuse me. John, back to you. I know you had a couple of questions.
Yes, if I could, Colonel Gadsden, just in summary, after your playing days, after your years of service, one thing that really piqued my interest was your love of photography and how it relates also to the military world and connecting civilian life and military life. Take us into that a little bit. What have those efforts been like? What have you learned from it?
Well, I guess I think of my photography is really as an extension of my ability to share, my ability to communicate. Privately, not a lot of people know about this part of my journey, but I had some severe damage to my right arm and hand, and this was after I found this out after I lost my legs. And I didn't know whether or not I was ever going to be able to pick up a camera again. And that, quite honestly, was the most devastating blow to me, mentally, emotionally. It's how I prefer to really speak and communicate. And I was just talking to someone literally today, and I can recall, the day I was wounded, I had taken photos at an event that I was at, and just sort of my ability to kind of capture the essence of the moment. And so it's my way of personally communicating. Whether I'm going to share it or not, becomes, is really kind of unimportant to me. It's just my connection to how I want to connect to the world. And, again, I was really pretty devastated when I wasn't sure whether or not all the bad things that had happened to me, this ultimately became, was one of the most important parts of who I was. And so, not something that people think of, in the warrior class, if you will, but it's important. It really kind of, in my opinion, shows the multi dimensions of all of us as people. We're not all defined by one thing, whether it's football or whether it's the military or whether it's whatever you do. There are many components that make us, and I think they all provide a kind of balance in our lives.
Your strength and your resolve, inspirational, your service, so thankful for it and for your time today. We appreciate you, Colonel Gadsden, and also Rich Jones. Thank you both very much.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It was an honor to be here with you all today. Beat Navy.
Appreciate it kindly. A couple of Army men there. Grateful for their time, and also grateful to all of you watching for your service and for your time as I welcome Ross back in. Ross, you're expecting a low-scoring game. I can tell you that I know one thing I'm expecting. When this game arrives, America will be moved. Every year that I've had the opportunity to be at this game, I'm sure it for you is the same. I feel the chills. I have a shortness of breath. My chest gets tight. I find myself on the verge of choking up. And it's a really special day.
I hadn't experienced it till 4 years ago. And now anyone I talk to, I say, you got to get that on the bucket list. You got to go. You got to go to the Army-Navy game. I am fascinated to see what it will be like, the environment up at West Point, Mikey Stadium, only the Corps of Cadets and the midshipmen. This could be really cool. This is history. This is unique. Let's do this.
I appreciate it, my friend. I'm glad to be there with you. And we give thanks to everyone who was part of today's event. To Mr. Sean McManus, to the coaches, Jeff Munkin, Ken Niumatalolo, to the players, Trent Steelman and Phil McConkey, to Colonel Greg Gatson, and to Rich Jones. And we also say thank you to all of you that are in service currently or have served. We owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to you for your selflessness and for your generosity. Also, keep in mind that there will be programming to come in advance of Army and Navy as Army and Navy meet for the 121st time. You can get it going on CBS Sports Network. Inside College Football, the March On will head your way Saturday at noon Eastern Time. It'll be spectacular with only the students in attendance, and then the broadcast itself on CBS at 3 o'clock for 121st Army Navy game. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the game this Saturday.